I won't keep you long, but I want to tell you a few things. Let me first of all say, I keep reading people saying, well, this election is close because some people who voted for the president 4 years ago, full of hope and change, are disappointed that everything's not hunky-dory. Well, let me tell you something, folks. 4 years ago, after the tough primary campaign with Hillary, she did 70 events and I did 40 events to support President Obama's first election. And and I believed in it with all my heart that he should win. But I am way more enthusiastic about this election than I was 4 years ago. I feel much stronger. And I want to tell you why, and why you should. Even more than me. Because you have more tomorrows than yesterdays. Your whole future is before you. We got to get America firmly in the tomorrow business. We have to create a 21st century economy. It has to have a place for everybody. And I can tell you, the differences are stark. A philosophy that says we're all in this together, or one that says you're on your own. And an economic policy that says we build the country from the bottom up and the middle out, not by trickle down. A policy-making process that is based on evidence, not extremist ideology. And a budget based on arithmetic, not illusion. There are 5 big reasons that I feel so strongly about this race. The first was captured in the memorable picture of the president standing with the Republican governor of New Jersey, working to heal New Jersey after Sandy. Also embodied in the cooperation that he gave to New York City, where my daughter lives and where my offices and my foundation are, the independent mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg, just endorsed President Obama for president. And 2 of the reasons he cited were his outstanding leadership in the aftermath of this terrible natural disaster and his conviction that we have to do something about climate change and do it in a smart way that grows our economy. Look, folks, there's not a Democrat or a Republican way to clean up after a flood, to rebuild broken bonds of communities, to help people put their lives back together. Cooperation works better than constant conflict. And that's why you have moderate Republicans like Susan Eisenhower, President Eisenhower's granddaughter, and General Colin Powell endorsing Barack Obama for president. I like President Obama's willingness, no matter how mean they are to him, no matter how many times they say no, to keep the door open and say, this America belongs to all of us. We need to do this together. In the budget debates, when the Republicans said they would not have anything to do with a budget that raised 1 red cent on the most fortunate Americans to help deal with our debt, he still, to show good faith, gave them $1 trillion in tax cuts unilaterally. He tried to get them to work on health care and waited months to do it. They said no. He offered what once had been bipartisan ideas in his jobs bill, including a very good idea, the infrastructure bank, which would give private capital and public money the chance to work together with a guaranteed return for the private investment. Republicans used to be for it. Once he decided he was for it, they were against it. They said no. When they defeated the Republicans, Richard Lugar, the senior Republican expert on foreign affairs in the Senate, a wonderful man, a man who's made our country a safer, better place, and our world a safer world. The nominee who defeated him said he wanted to go to Washington to bring more partisanship, that his idea of a happy day was enforcing his opinion on someone else. I don't want, and Governor Romney endorsed the guy. I could tell you stories till the cow come home. Of course, you've got this Florida congressman that says there are 81 members of the Communist Party in the House of Representatives, all of them Democrats. When he did that, I have to tell you, I was thrilled. I said, gosh, what a service to the country you told us that. I will personally promise to run every last one of them out of Congress. Just give me their names. Give me their names. I'm still waiting for the first name. Look, we're laughing, but this is serious. We cannot afford to put the White House and the Congress in the hands of people who say it is my way or the highway. We need Barack Obama to be president. The second reason I'm for President Obama is that he has been a very good commander-in-chief. He has taken care of our national security. He has used force when necessary, pursued diplomacy vigorously, tried to build new networks, and he's got a heck of a Secretary of State. Look, we live in a world where there's a lot of things happening all the time, way beyond our control often, but we have to be involved in that world. We need a world with more partners and fewer adversaries. If we have to fight, okay. But you can't kill, jail, or occupy everybody that might be your enemy. You also got to make a world with some more friends and partners and fewer adversaries. Barack Obama understands that. He ended the war in Iraq. He is bringing our soldiers home from Afghanistan. And most important to me, he is fully committed to taking care of these veterans when they do come home. Since Mr. Ryan and the Tea Party Congress have been in control of their budgets, let me just give you an example of the difference between President Obama and them, including the vice presidential nominee. They changed the rules for qualifying for full GI Bill benefits at lower cost. There are a lot of these veterans that I read a story the other day about a woman. She and her husband are both in the service. She was from North Carolina. They were sent to Texas to train. They were sent overseas. She comes back, goes back to North Carolina, and under an amendment they just adopted, the state can decide that she's not an in-state student and her GI Bill benefits don't cover her tuition, and she's got to come up with money that she doesn't have. That is now affecting 250,000 men and women who serve this country who are intended to be able to get a college degree with the GI Bill. And you ain't seen nothing yet. That's another reason I want Barack Obama to be president of the United States. The third reason I want him to be president is that he's played a bad hand very well. And what do I mean by that? You remember the president, Hillary, Vice President Biden, and several other distinguished people ran for president, all during 2007 and 2008. The economy was already bad. Right? We only had 2.6 million private sector jobs in 8 years after 22.7 million in the 8 years when I served. We had doubled the debt of the country again, and wages were flat, poverty was rising. Adjusted for inflation, median family income was $2,000 lower on the day before that crash than it was the day I left office. So all of them went around the country pouring out their hearts to people like you to tell you how they wanted to build a 21st century economy and heal the country. Then, boom, the crash happened. The worst financial crash since the Great Depression. Now, once again, it was kind of like Sandy. For a while, there was real bipartisanship. I give President Bush credit. He and his Treasury Secretary, they tried to keep the whole financial crisis from collapsing the country. We had the biggest car dealer in America, couldn't finance cars. Sears and Roebuck was about to get to the point where they couldn't let you buy a refrigerator on an installment plan. It was a disaster. And both John McCain and Barack Obama went back to the Senate and took an unpopular vote to keep that from happening. Then when President Obama became president, he kept going. Except he made sure that they paid the money back. You got all the money back that went to the banks, plus a profit. They paid it back with interest. And then we began the long road back. We heard today, last month, we got another 172,000 jobs, which means that in the 33 months since we started growing again, the economy's produced 5.3 million jobs. That compares with only 2.6 million in the 7 years after the brief dot-com problem in 2001 and the crash in 2008. I saw where your former Governor Bush complained that he thought we were blaming the president, his brother, for that crash. So let's don't blame anybody. Let's just say, poof, it was an act of God. Let's don't. But let's don't blame Obama. He wasn't even there. So we lost jobs for 13 months after the president took office. And then it started. Now you tell me who's got a better economic philosophy. In 33 months, we produced 5.3 million jobs, twice as many as their trickle-down theory produced in 7 years. And we're poised to take off. So, this might be the whole election, folks. Most everybody who's disillusioned is laboring under the illusion that anybody who ever lived in the United States, including me, could have fully healed this economy in 4 years. Not possible. Too much damage done. And all of you who study economics here, whether you want to or not, go on the internet tomorrow and look at this the best book that's ever been written on this subject by a Nobel Prize-winning economist at Yale, Kenneth Rogoff, at Harvard, and his partner, Carmen Reinhart. I think Rogoff is a moderate Republican. I'm not sure, but I think he is. But their book is called This Time It's Different. And it's a joke, because what they really mean is this time it's not different. Every time you have a big financial crash, it's because somebody keeps plowing money into something that's too good to be true, forgetting what your mother told you, that if something's too good to be true, it probably isn't. And they don't have enough money to back up the risk they're taking, and sooner or later the crash comes. So Professor Rogoff was kind enough to send me one of these books, and I immediately sat down and devoured it. And then I went back and read the chapters on America twice. And I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, do you believe there is any way we could have fully healed from this crash in 4 years? He said, you got to be kidding. He said, most countries take a decade or more to get over this much damage. And then I said, yeah, but this is America. Can we beat that? He said, oh yeah, we could beat it. If we do everything right, we could beat it in 8 years, maybe 7.5. We could get there. But Barack Obama's leadership has led America to outperform Europe's response. Their unemployment's 3 points higher than ours. They did what the Republicans have done with the budget since they've been there. They went for austerity first, and their unemployment rate keeps going up. President Obama did a good job with a tough hand, and we are better off today than we would have been if they had been in charge. He deserves credit for that. Now, that's the third reason. The fourth reason is more important. He's got a better plan for the future.
Yeah.
He's got every election's about the future. He wants us, and I should say this, the other point Professor Rogoff made is we can't rebuild. We have to build a whole new prosperity. You can't go back to the economy we had in the 1990s when I was president. You have to have a 21st century version of it. And you have to do the same thing we did. You have to identify the areas where the jobs can grow and put the pedal to the metal and accelerate the job growth and then educate and train people to do those jobs. So what does President Obama propose to do? To have a partnership between business and government, which is what works everywhere, and to invest in the areas of opportunity. What are they? Modern infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, but fixing our computer download speeds. In South Korea, they're 4 times as fast as ours. If we got to their speeds with broadband universal access all across America, it could cause a revolution in economic opportunity in small towns and rural areas all across this country. On Native American reservations that don't have gambling, the poorest America. Florida's got a lot of sunshine, as we all know, and I'll say more about that in a minute. And so does Los Angeles and the West Coast cities and the Southwest cities. But except for that, the sun shines and the wind blows mostly in America where the people are not. But we rank first in the world or second in the world in every scientific survey in the capacity to generate electricity from the sun and the wind. So what do you need? You need modern transmission systems that will take the power from where it can be most efficiently generated to where the people are. That's the kind of modern infrastructure we need. We need to invest in modern agriculture. There's 7 billion people on Earth, and they're going to be 9 by 2050, and we got to feed them all. You don't want a bunch of starving people. America's got to do its part, and we got to help other countries do their part. We have to invest in the new forms of information technology. We have to keep our leadership in biotechnology and think of all of its ramifications and all the entrepreneurs and innovative ideas that are there and how to use them in America. These are the kind of things we have to do. He wants to invest in that. And then he wants to make sure we educate and empower all Americans to play a role in building this new prosperity. Not just all of you, but also middle-aged, non-college educated people who've lost their jobs, who can go back to a community college or back to college and play their role in this new prosperity too. And he has a budget to do that. And the most amazing student loan reform. The most important thing done in the administration that is not widely understood. And this is a big deal. I want you all to listen to this. In the last decade, we remain near the top of the world in the percentage of our young people going to college, where we had been since the end of World War II and the GI Bill. However, we dropped to 16th in the percentage of our young adults with 4-year college degrees. And if you will think about it, you all know why. Because the price went up faster than inflation. Student aid didn't keep up. Families were in trouble because of the economy, even before the crash. And so young people thought, well, I just can't borrow any more money. I'll never be able to pay it back. This is a calamitous development. We cannot let it continue. We have to get back in the top 5 countries in the world in doing this. Now, as long as we stay open to immigrants and keep letting people come in, which I think is good economics and good for our country, we may not be able to be number one when countries with 3 and 4 and 5 million people decide that they want to do the same thing we did. But we got to be up there. So here's what the new student loan law does. The old student loan system worked like this. The government gave money to the banks and fees to make loans and then guaranteed 90% or more of the loan. And then you paid it back. Here's how the new system works. And I know this worked because it's exactly what I did on an experimental basis when I was president. The government sets aside a loan reserve, and Florida State says, here are the people eligible for student loans at our campus. And they loan you the money direct. That makes the interest rates lower and cheaper to repay. But far more important, starting next year, every single student in America with a federal student loan will have the option to repay that loan as a low fixed percent of their income for 20 years. You understand what that means? Nobody ever has to drop out of college again because of the cost. And if you get out of school, suppose you want to spend 3 or 4 years going to a small town in rural Florida with a low tax base where you won't make a lot of money to teach school. Suppose you graduate from medical school with a debt of over $200,000, which is the average medical school debt in America today, and you want to go to Miami and work in an inner city clinic and take care of poor people. Suppose you want to do something like that. You can do it now because your loan repayment will be determined by your income, not the other way around. I want to tell you something. If every single student in America and all of their parents knew that, Barack Obama would win this election going away. On that alone, you should vote to re-elect President Obama. Now, of course, there is another plan, Governor Romney's plan. What's his plan? His plan is...
Pay for it yourself.
His plan is, I'm going to give another humongous tax cut and give 60% of the benefits to the highest earners. And it costs $5 trillion. And I'm going to spend over $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years that the president does not intend to spend. So they had a convention where they said the debt was the biggest problem, and their opening gambit is to add $7.5 trillion to it. So what are they going to do? Governor Romney said himself, he said, I'm going to cut everything but the military budget and Medicare and Social Security. Everything else. First thing I'm going to do, on the day one I'm in office, make everybody cut what they're doing 5%. That won't even touch the cost of these tax cuts. They are going to cut everything I just said to you. They are going to cut and get rid of all the subsidies for solar and wind power. Florida is producing 14 times more electricity from the sun than it was in 2009. Florida is the second largest supplier of utility-grade solar power in America. Florida is the home of the first hybrid solar power plant in the world. Governor Romney thinks it's a waste of money. Barack Obama thinks it's our future. You decide. There are 100,000 people working in the solar business today. There are 75,000 working in the wind business. Iowa generates 20% of its electricity from wind. A lot of those windmills are on land owned by Republican farmers. So we got some bipartisan support there. Texas, on a good day when all the politicians are talking, generates 25% of its electricity from wind. And we have just begun. On a sunny spring day last spring, Germany, where the sun shines on average as much as it does in London, not much, generated 26 gigawatts of electricity from the sun. That is the equivalent of 20 nuclear power plants. They got 300,000 jobs out of it. They are 1/4 our population, less than 1/4 our size, and they have about half the capacity we do. We should have millions and millions of good jobs from solar and wind and other clean energy sources. Barack Obama. But Governor Romney's going to have to cut agriculture research. He's going to have to cut infrastructure. He's going to cut everything. He's going to start by cutting everything 5% across the board and then go down from there. If you believe that's good economics to give me another tax cut, you should support him. If you don't, you better be for Barack Obama. And then, I couldn't make this up. You're going to find this hard to believe. The President's Student Loan Program actually saved $60 billion over 10 years in lower bank subsidies. So what did Congress and President Obama do with that $60 billion? They spent it to guarantee increased Pell Grants every year for the next decade. And they spent it to guarantee that the Hope Scholarship Tax Credit, which I initiated, and all the other tax credits for middle-class families will be maintained for a decade. So what's the Romney position? His position is we should repeal that law, give the $60 billion back to the banks, raise the cost of student loans, make them harder to repay, not fund the Pell Grants, not guarantee the tax credits, and let America continue to drop in the rankings of college graduates. Why? Because he wants the banks to have the money back, and ideologically, they can't be for the government doing anything good for anybody. It's crazy. It is bad for your future. And on the differences in the student loan program alone, Barack Obama should be reelected President of the United States. You might be interested to know, you may have noticed that Governor Romney announced the other day that with these brilliant economic ideas, no, I got to finish. I was one of the things. Look at their budgets. Obama has a budget which takes the debt down $4 trillion over 10 years. About what the Simpson-Bowles Commission recommended for the first 10 years. In about the way they recommended it. It takes $2.50 of spending cuts for every dollar in new taxes, and ask those of us who are most fortunate to pay the tax rates we did when I was president. I love saying this. I never had any money left the White House. But he said, we can do that because we got the benefit of the economic growth in the last decade. Almost all of it went to the top 10%, over 40% to the top 1%. And we got the benefit of the tax cuts in the Bush years. So we ought to kick in a little to help America deal with the debt problem, which we'll have to do once the economy starts to grow, to keep interest rates down. Okay, that's Obama's plan, based on arithmetic. So what's Romney's plan? Because we know he just added $7.5 trillion to the debt, right? And I'm going to be fairer to him than he is to the president. He does account for $1 trillion of it by saying we should lower the corporate income tax to the international average from 35 to about 26-27%, and repeal deductions available to corporations that allow some of them to pay a lot less. I agree with that, but that's in President Obama's plan too, because it's just common sense. I mean, you take a company like Dow Chemical, they're creating jobs in America. I'd give them tax breaks, and the president has, to bring jobs home to America. One of the things they're manufacturing in Michigan are little shingles you can put on your roof with solar panels in each single. So, but they're paying near the maximum. Exxon paid 17% last year. They don't create near as many jobs in America as Dow Chemical. So, and I'm not just picking on them, you can't blame them for taking advantage of the law. But the point is, the law needs to be reformed so we level out the tax burden and we give our preferences to people that are creating jobs here.
Yes!
But that's also, but the problem for Governor Romney is that's only $1 trillion. So he's still got $6.5 trillion hole to fill before he pays down the first dime on the debt. So you say, well, okay, Governor, where's the rest of the money coming from? He said, well, I'm just going to repeal a bunch of deductions and stuff, but not on middle-class people. And the wealthiest Americans will still pay 60% of taxes, which means they'll get 60% of the tax cuts. They can go home and do the math. It's crazy. And you say, well, but that's not near enough. Even Paul Ryan's budget, which had huge tax cuts but less than Romney's, was about $2.5 trillion short. Romney's is way short of that. So how are you going to do it? Show us the money. Show us the numbers. And he always says, see me about that after the election. Well, just exactly how much are you going to cut education? See me about that after the election. This guy wants to be president, and he won't even give us a budget. So, Obama's got a better economic plan, he's got a better education plan, and he's got the only budget in the race. Notwithstanding all that, you may have heard Governor Romney say a few days ago that the American people will be so elated when he's elected that, poof, we'll get 12 million jobs in the next 4 years. Remember when he said that?
Like pushing away, like.
Well, it probably is just a coincidence. But just a few days before he said that, a respected business forecaster having nothing to do with politics, Moody's Analytics, said that we will get 12 million jobs in the next 4 years because of what has already been done. So in other words, he's saying, let me be president so I can get credit for the jobs that are coming as a result of President Obama's policies, so I can give you another round of trickle down and put the country in the hole again. I don't think it's a very good argument. I'd rather have Barack Obama as president. Now, just one final point. I want all of you to think about this. One thing President Bush said that I agree with, and he got made fun of when he said it, but it's the truth. He said the president is the decider in chief. Remember when he said that?
Yes.
Everybody knows it's funny. But it's true. Barack Obama decided to sign the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. And it's not just a woman's issue. Any kid like me that grew up in a family where the mom and the dad were both working knows that every man wants his wife to get equal pay for equal work, and it's better for the children. So when asked in the second debate, Governor Romney, who says he's so decisive, well, Governor, would you have signed this bill? I mean, it's been the law for 2 years. Would you have signed it or not? Come on, fess up. He didn't want to say because he didn't want to make any of the extremists in his party angry. Is that what you want in the White House? With you? Not me. I want somebody who will make a decision and tell you what it is. Barack Obama decided to fight for funding for Planned Parenthood. Mitt Romney wants to. Barack Obama decided that all those young people that were brought here from other countries without documentation when they were little kids should be able to stay here and contribute to our country. And he had to do it by executive order because Governor Romney's party doesn't want immigration reform. Barack Obama decided to save the automobile industry in America. And he made labor make concessions and management make concessions. And yes, he put some money into it, and they paid their loans back, by the way.
Yeah.
And guess what? The Japanese and the German car manufacturers in America, they supported helping Chrysler and GM survive. Why? Because they knew we're all in this together, and if GM couldn't buy parts anymore, all the parts suppliers would go broke, and they would be toast. They couldn't get the parts either. Governor Romney opposed it. And in an effort to somehow rescue his indefensible position in Ohio, where 1 in 8 jobs depends on automobiles, did you see what he did the other day? He attacked the president for allowing Jeep to move jobs to China. Then he attacked Chrysler because they own Jeep. And then he wanted to go after Fiat, but he said the Italians. Like it was some sort of conspiracy. Obama allowed the Italians to take jobs out of America and move them to China. Well, I kind of took offense at it because I helped Toledo, Ohio get a Jeep plant in 1997 when I was president. We had to do some work on it. And I just got back from Maryland, Michigan, and I know they're expanding their operations there. So Jeep said it wasn't true. Chrysler said it wasn't true. Fiat said it wasn't true. They said, look, we're expanding in America. We're doing great here. But because we're a healthy country again, we can reopen the operations we have in China. Jeeps are big and heavy. If we want to sell it in China, we got to make them over there. We can't afford to send them from here. It's a long way. But we're building up here. Now, when I was a kid, and I got caught with my hand in the cookie jar, I'd sort of shrug my shoulders and take it out. You know what Governor Romney did? He just got some more cookies. They upped the ad buy on an ad they knew was false, that the president of Chrysler said was false, and eventually the head of General Motors said was false. Flagrantly false. So they said, oh, people like you don't pay attention to what they say. You don't know the facts. Everybody's just upset. Just feed it to them. Spend more money. I do not want somebody making decisions for the people of the United States that would deliberately propagate something that he knows is false. Now I'll give you one last little decider-in-chief issue. This health care bill, which looks a lot like the bill that Ted Kennedy and the Democrats in the legislature drafted in Massachusetts that Mitt Romney signed and he now renounces. He says, day one, man, I'm going to issue an order to stop enforcing that bill and we're going to repeal that thing. It's just terrible. Well, first of all of you think about this. All of you who are in the workforce now and those that you're going. I've been saying this for years. The worst thing we could do is to go back to the status quo. We are spending 17.8% of our income on health care. The next most expensive system in any big rich country is 11.8%. That's just a bunch of numbers, right? It's $1 trillion a year we would not spend if we had any other system, including a lot of them with better performance index than we do. That's $1 trillion a year we can't spend giving pay raises, hiring people, investing in new equipment, new technology, and research and development. Big headline on the front page of USA Today last week saying that wages have not been rising for a decade because employers had to take the money they would have spent on pay raises for their workers and spend it on insurance premiums. Now, what's happened since this terrible Obamacare passed? 3 million young people between 19 and 25 carried on their parents' policies for the first time. Fascinating reform efforts going on all over America to figure out how to lower the cost and raise the quality of health care. Health inflation has been 4% or less for 2 years in a row for the first time, and get this, 51 years. It could solve the Medicare problem if the inflation rate drops in half. That's amazing. It gets better. There were over 1 million people in Florida alone who got refunds from insurance companies this year because the law requires 80 to 85% of your premium to go to your health care, not to profits and promotions. I think we should be thanking Barack Obama, not condemning him for signing that law. This is a big deal. So, what does Governor Romney want to do? He wants to repeal the law, let the insurance companies go back to their old pricing policies, not see what's coming next year, which is over 30 million Americans will be able to afford insurance for the first time, including millions with pre-existing conditions, at least 1 million people in Florida. No discrimination between men and women based on insurance rates. Women sometimes pay. He wants to get rid of that and says, well, nobody dies if they don't have health insurance. They just go to the emergency room. That's what he said. Now, again, I'm sure there are lots of health policy classes here. But here's the truth, folks. There's study after study after study after study that shows if you have no insurance and all you got is the emergency room, you see a doctor later, when you're sicker, you cost more, and you don't live as long. And if you do have insurance, you get medical care sooner when it costs less, and you live longer. This is a literal life and death decision. And it's good for the economy. It will free up money to go to pay raises and hiring and investment. And interestingly enough, one of the things in Governor Romney's health care reform is to cut the Medicaid program by a third over 10 years and give it back to the states. Now, I just want you to look around. Let me just tell you, this is something Barack Obama would never do. And those of you who are young may not know this, but Medicaid is known chiefly for providing health care to lower income kids. But what a lot of Americans don't know is most of those kids are in families with working parents. They're working for a living. And it's going to be a lot harder for them to work if their children don't have health insurance. And they are all our children. Every time one of these kids doesn't get health care, it restricts our common future. Every time one of them drops out of school, it restricts our common future. Every time one of them drops out of college, it restricts our common future. All our kids. Now, what most Americans don't know is that 61% of the money in Medicaid goes to two other groups. First of all, it's senior citizens living on Medicare who have spent down all their resources, don't have any more money, and don't have any place to live but a nursing home. That's paid for by Medicaid, even though they're on Medicare. Now, if you cut that by a third, who in Florida are we going to designate to decide whether we kick Aunt Maud or Aunt Mary out of the nursing home? Just so I can get another tax cut? Which kids are going to lose their health insurance so I can get another tax cut? And worst of all is the third group. Families, many of them with good, solid middle-class incomes, whose children have autistic conditions, or cerebral palsy, or muscular dystrophy, or developmental disabilities, who are gifts from God but cost more money to take care of. A lot of their parents would not be able to work at all if Medicaid didn't help them meet the enormous burdens of their children's conditions. One decider-in-chief says, I don't know if I would have signed the equal pay law, but I'd darn sure cut that a third and send it back to the state. And the other one, Barack Obama, said, over my dead body, we're going to keep taking care of the children of this country. Together. So, folks, I worried for a long time about what these people could possibly be thinking. But for the next 4 days, I'm not going to worry about it at all. I'm only going to worry about what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking about re-electing Barack Obama. I'm thinking about making sure that America gets back in the future business. I'm thinking about a 21st century prosperity with millions of jobs and rising incomes and declining poverty, where we're all in this together and we're going forward together. That's what this election's about. And make no mistake about it, you can see I've lived a long time. Sometimes I don't have ever got as old as I am. But the older I get, the more I know that all that really matters in all these highfalutin political campaigns is three things. Are people better off when you quit than when you started? Do children have a brighter future? And are we coming together instead of being torn apart? If you ask yourself, which candidate is more likely to have more people better off, the children to have a better future, and this country coming together instead of coming apart, there is no doubt the answer is Barack Obama, and you can make him president again.